Have fun watching TS.
Know that, because I learned it at camp. An hour later, he was on his knees vomiting, and I gave him half my water because nobody else would, and Mom rubbed his back and said, "Poor thing." And I wanted to ask where my poor thing was when I'd been starving for 2 days, but I didn't say anything. I knelt beside Mom to check her ankle, and the heat was radiating off it from 6 inches away, with red streaks past her knee, and her eyes glassy and unfocused, and I felt panic rising, because I knew what those streaks meant. "She needs antibiotics today," Dad's voice cracked. "Don't be dramatic." Mom looked at me. "How bad is it really?" "Bad. If those red lines keep spreading, she could go septic." She nodded like she trusted me even if Dad wouldn't, and I packed the ankle in creek mud with shaking hands because I was 17 years old, trying to keep my mother alive, and I had no idea if it was working. The sun went down and the temperature dropped, and Dad tried to stand and his legs buckled and he went down hard on his side, and his skin was gray and cold and his speech was slurred, and I felt real terror watching his body shut down in front of me. I dragged him to the fire and wrapped him in everything we had and held a water bottle to his mouth while his hands couldn't grip it. The fire popped and settled, and Brody rolled over and looked at me through the glow. "Do you actually know how to get us out?" "Yes, since day one." "Don't tell Mom and Dad I asked that." I felt a wave of disgust, because even now, the thing he was most afraid of was them finding out he wasn't in charge. Hours later, deep in the darkest part of the night, something heavy moved through the brush with slow, deliberate footfalls that I could feel in the ground, and every nerve in my body was screaming. I was the only one awake between whatever was out there and my sleeping family. I could hear it breathing, deep, rhythmic huffing, and a branch snapped under its weight, and it started circling the edge of the firelight without crossing in. I fed the fire with shaking hands until the flames climbed high and the huffing stopped, but I could still feel it out there waiting, and I didn't close my eyes the rest of the night. When the sky finally started to lighten, I walked the perimeter and found fresh tracks 20 feet from where Mom had been lying, bigger than any of the others, pressed deep into the soft ground during the darkest hour, and my hands were shaking because it had been close enough to touch her while I sat there thinking I was keeping us safe. Brody decided to cross a swollen creek running brown and fast with debris spinning in the current, and he slipped and went under for 3 seconds before catching a branch. "Easy." I wanted to scream at him because he had almost just drowned and he was calling it easy. Mom couldn't cross with her ankle, and Dad tried to carry her, and they both went down, and I waded into the freezing current, and the cold slammed into my chest like a wall, and I grabbed Mom's arm and screamed that I had her and pulled her to the bank. Brody looked at the other side. "Actually, we should have stayed over there." I stared at him and couldn't even form words because we had just risked our lives crossing a flooded creek twice for nothing. We crossed back, and Mom collapsed, sobbing and looking at her. I was more afraid than I'd been during the flood or the bear because she looked like she was giving up. I stacked rocks into an SOS, and Brody walked over and kicked them apart. "We don't need rescue." I wanted to scream because my mother could die tonight, and he just destroyed the one thing that might save her. Her infection is past her knee. If it hits her bloodstream, she could die. If you would just trust me. A helicopter appeared to the east, and I jumped up, waving my arms and screaming, and Brody grabbed my arm and yanked it down. "Just a news chopper. It could be search and rescue. Nobody's looking for us." The sound faded over the ridge, and I stood there with my arm still in the air,